Carol, talk to your daughter. Why did she decide to go to another city? Do we have a bad university here? Her mother-in-law was indignant. Victoria is going to enroll in a faculty that our university doesn't have. It has always been her dream to study there, Carol explained patiently to her mother-in-law. But I expected her to go to a university near my home. I expected her to live with me and help me. After all, I have more frequent migraine attacks, and my heart often aches. I need care, supervision, and communication. Victoria would help me with housework and wouldn't have to look for a normal apartment and pay rent. If my son has no time to take care of me, let my granddaughter do it, the mother-in-law said hopefully. Victoria doesn't even want to hear anything about living with you in the same house, and I think she has a good reason for that, Courtney added. It is only now that you have noticed that you have a granddaughter. You have been ignoring her all these years. Maybe when David is older, he'll be willing to move in with you, and you won't be so lonely, ungrateful. I spent my whole life doing everything for you, the mother-in-law continued to grumble. Carol hung up the phone. She stared out the window for a long time. The children's handmade greeting card popped up in her mind, crumpled and thrown in the trash. Sam and Carol met at the school party. Carol was in 9th grade, and Sam was in 12th grade. They had seen each other before at school, but didn't know each other in person. Sam perceived Carol as a little kid, but by 9th grade, she grew up and became an attractive blonde girl with green eyes. Carol's face was always brightened with a sweet smile. At the party, Sam asked her for a slow dance, and she agreed. From then on, they started dating. Sam and Carol often spent time together. They went to the skating rink or to the movies. He helped Carol with complicated physics and math tasks, and she helped him in writing different essays. After high school, Sam entered college, which was located in their city. The young people continued dating. Sam's mother welcomed Carol warmly. She liked the smart and well-mannered girl. She also liked that Sam always came home on time and chose walks with his girlfriend instead of hanging out with friends and going to bars. Carol's parents treated the boy well too. He was mature and responsible, always walked her home, and they didn't come home too late. Carol was still in school, and he helped with her studies and supported her in everything. First love developed into a real mature feeling, and Sam and Carol decided to get married. Carol graduated from college and married her beloved. They celebrated the wedding at a local restaurant. Everything was typical: veil, white dress, songs, and dancing. After the wedding, Carol and Sam began to live together in his mother's house, so the girl had to accept the new realities. Courtney worked all her life as a physician in a local hospital and lived with her son. Her husband, Sam's father, left them when the boy turned 3 years old. Carol, we don't eat such fatty meat. It's better to buy turkey or rabbit. It's much healthier. Her mother-in-law looked at a piece of pork her daughter-in-law had bought at the supermarket. For dinner, we eat porridge, yogurt, or fruit, but not greasy fried potatoes. That's bad for your pancreas, her mother-in-law shook her head. Carol, in this house, you should always iron the linens. Crumpled bedding is unacceptable. Carol smiled sweetly, nodded, and obeyed her mother-in-law. It was her house, and she was the boss here. There were no quarrels between Courtney and Carol. Carol was young, very shy, didn't want to argue, and she was deeply in love with Courtney's only son. 3 years later, Carol got pregnant. Sam was overjoyed. He wanted to have a son. Grandma Courtney also dreamed of a grandson, an heir, she said. One child is enough. We can provide him with a decent future. Why only one? We want at least 2 children, Sam smiled. It's not the right time to have 2 children, you have to provide for them. But nowadays everything is very expensive, Courtney yelled. Don't even think about it. After the childbirth, you will realize what it's like to provide for a baby. Carol gave birth to a sweet and healthy daughter. But it was a girl. Courtney was extremely unhappy. She tried to ignore the baby. She never took her for walks, never took her in her arms. Coming home from work, she would eat her dinner and go to her room, Carol's friend said. I'm not sure. It seems to me that she doesn't care about her granddaughter. She's disappointed that Victoria is not a boy. Moreover, she said we gave her a silly name. Don't be upset. When the baby grows up, Courtney's heart will soften. It's impossible not to love such a wonderful baby, Carol's friend reassured. Carol wasn't sure about it, but she didn't want to terminate the pregnancy either. She was afraid of her mother-in-law's reaction, and she was right. What? Pregnant again? Courtney looked at her daughter-in-law like she was crazy. Are you out of your mind? We've already discussed it. You don't need a second child. You will not be able to provide a decent future for 2 children. What do you mean we've discussed it? It's not your life, and it's not your baby. Sam and I made the decision, Carol replied in confusion. Yes, it's not my life, and the baby's not mine, but I'll have to stay up all night because of the baby's crying. I'll have to clean the house and throw away hundreds of bottles and diapers, and Sam will have to earn money. And you're the only one who's not going to do anything at all. You don't want a baby, you just don't want to work. You can give birth to a child every 3 years, and your husband will provide for you. Great plan, Courtney yelled. Yo, Mom, stop it. It's too late to terminate the pregnancy anyway. She's 5 months pregnant. And the decision about the second child was really made by both of us, so you told me about it only 5 months later. Awesome, soon you'll establish a kindergarten in my house. You live in my house and didn't even ask my opinion, Courtney said indignantly. Relations between the family members escalated. Now Carol had to do everything herself. Her mother-in-law didn't help her in any way, and her husband worked from dawn till dusk. Carol gave birth to a son, David. He was born weak, he cried all the time and needed constant attention. Carol had a placental rupture and needed a cesarean section. For the first couple of days, she couldn't even stand up. The nurses brought her baby several times a day to feed him. Carol was afraid to think about how she would cope with it all at home on her own, but she was surprised. Her mother-in-law took a vacation to help her daughter-in-law with the baby. She seemed to have become a different person. Don't get up, she told her daughter-in-law sternly. I'm a doctor, and I know it's too early for you to get up. Get some rest, I'll take care of David. You need to recover and gain strength. Grandma Courtney changed the baby's diapers, walked with the stroller, and put her grandson to bed. She bathed him and comforted him when he cried. She only gave David to Carol for feeding. The rest of the time, he was with his grandma. But she continued to ignore Victoria. Sam drove his daughter to kindergarten in the morning and picked her up in the evening. Courtney refused to do that, even though the kindergarten was not far from their house. She said that she couldn't tear herself apart and take care of 2 children at once. At first, Carol really enjoyed the time. Finally, she managed to calm down and recover after childbirth. Her mother-in-law stopped abusing her and became the normal, pleasant woman she had been before Victoria was born. However, very soon Carol realized that things were not as wonderful as she thought. Firstly, her mother-in-law tried to keep Carol away from her son. It was like he wasn't her grandson but her son, and Carol was just a stranger to him. Secondly, Courtney's attitude to Victoria became even worse. Now she didn't even try to hide her hatred for her granddaughter. Carol, why did you get up? It's so early, even David is still asleep. Her mother-in-law looked at Carol in bewilderment. I'm already recovered and feeling well. You've been very helpful, but it's time for me to take care of my children myself, Carol smiled sweetly. Oh, please, it's no problem at all for me, her mother-in-law squinted. David is so cute, he looks so much like Sam, and he has the same personality, cranky and whiny. My son was exactly the same when he was a baby, he would only calm down in my arms. I know very well how to deal with that. Yes, but David is not Sam. All babies are alike in some way. Victoria wasn't calm either. I don't know, maybe she wasn't. I don't remember her at that age. I think she was roaring all the time, both in her crib and in your arms, and probably even while sleeping. The expression on her mother-in-law's face immediately changed. You're unfair to Victoria, Carol sighed. Why? It's just that I really wanted a grandson, not a granddaughter. I don't know what to do with girls, how to behave with them. I raised a son, you know, the mother-in-law shrugged. Carol didn't argue with her husband's mother, but this excuse seemed ridiculous to her. She didn't know what to do with newborns either, whether boys or girls. However, this was not an excuse to show hatred for her granddaughter. Carol, where are you going? I plan to take David for a walk in the park, the mother-in-law said as she watched Carol dress the baby. We're going to pick up Victoria from kindergarten, Carol replied. Why? Sam will pick her up on his way home. It's more convenient for everyone, the woman shrugged. More convenient for everyone? Seriously, parents pick up other kids from kindergarten at 5 p.m., but Victoria stays there alone until 7 p.m. every day. Besides, I have plenty of time. This way, I can walk with David and pick up my daughter from kindergarten, Carol said. Well, do whatever you want, her mother-in-law sighed. 3 days later, the mother-in-law went back to work. Who's so sweet? Such a bunny. Who is Grandma's little boy? Grandma Courtney smiled at her grandson in the stroller. They were going for a walk in the park. Victoria, watch your step. Why are you so clumsy? Why were you born so silly? The woman looked contemptuously at her granddaughter, who almost fell tripping over the curb. Carol tried to change the situation. She wanted Courtney to treat the children equally. So now, Grandma walked with both grandchildren. But Courtney wasn't happy about it. Mom, why does Grandma call me silly if I do something wrong? But when David does the same thing, she kisses him and praises him. Victoria looked questioningly at her mother. Victoria, honey, it's just that you're older, Carol put on a fake smile. David is only 3 years old. He's still learning how to do everything. He's learning to eat and dress himself. He's even learning to talk. That's why Grandma praises him. But you already know how to do it all. You already attend school. The requirements for you are different, but Grandma never ever praised me, not even when I was 3 years old. She's always telling me I'm doing something wrong and scolding me. Don't get mad at Grandma, Carol stroked her daughter's head. She loves you equally, it's just that you're a little older, so she treats you a little differently. The woman tried to comfort her daughter, but she realized that Victoria was right. Grandma Courtney had not changed her attitude towards Victoria at all. David was the best grandchild to her, and Victoria just existed. Happy birthday, Grandma, Victoria excitedly handed her grandmother a handmade paper birthday card. I made a present for you myself, she proudly boasted. Yeah, I see, the woman said unhappily. The flowers are glued on carelessly, and the text is scribbled. I can't even read it. I thought that when you went to school, you'd finally learn to write properly, she muttered contemptuously. But I tried so hard, Victoria looked at her grandmother with eyes full of tears. Thank you, the woman said and put the birthday card away without even reading the birthday wish. During dinner, Victoria was completely upset. She didn't even want to eat the cake. Courtney, couldn't you at least pretend to be pleased? Victoria tried so hard. Carol looked at her mother-in-law reproachfully. You've heard her, but I told the truth. You praise her for every single step that's wrong. She should learn to be responsible for her words and actions from childhood. The gift should be decent. You're incorrigible, Mom, Sam sighed. It's unfair. Sam finally noticed what his wife had been telling him for years. The next day, Victoria found a birthday card she had given to her grandmother in the trash can. When the girl saw it, she burst into tears and ran to her room. Courtney only shrugged. What else was I supposed to do with that present? She looked at Sam, who witnessed the incident. Do you think I was supposed to put that piece of paper in a frame and hang it on the wall? You're telling me I hurt the child, but I don't think so. The man was silent. Now he doubted whether they should keep living in his mother's house. Carol had long asked them to buy their own place, but his mother had always discouraged him. Why do you need another house? When I die, who will live in this house? There is enough room for everyone. Your father built the house for a big family. You're my only son. You should live with your mother. Who else will help me in my old age? Mom, you are still far away from old age, Sam answered. And living together is not always comfortable. Are you saying I'm keeping you from living comfortably? I raised you. I devoted my whole life to you. I never got married again. I was afraid that your stepfather would hurt you. And now you don't need me. His mother began to escalate the conflict, and Sam gave in again. However, lately, he has been thinking more and more about following his wife's advice and buying their own place. The children were growing up, and they both already noticed their grandmother's completely different attitudes toward them. For Christmas, she gave Victoria the cheapest doll, but David got an expensive robot. She bought expensive chocolates only for her grandson. She would buy anything David asked for during walks, and Victoria got nothing. It got to the point where Grandma would only buy ice cream for David, and Victoria would walk beside them and watch David eat that ice cream. Carol was furious about it. She complained to her husband and argued with her mother-in-law, but Courtney just shrugged. She was sure she didn't do anything wrong, as always. I'm sick of it. I'm taking the kids, and I'm leaving. Carol firmly took the children's clothes out of the closet. I can't take it anymore. I could hardly calm Victoria down. She is very upset about your mother's behavior. The child is still trying to win her grandmother's love, but to no avail, Sam. I can't understand what's wrong with her. Victoria is her granddaughter. She's your child. What's going on in your mother's head, Carol? Let's wait first. We need to find a good house or apartment. We have to get a loan. We need time for that, you know. There's my grandma's mother's house in a neighboring town, about 20 minutes away from us. It's my inheritance. No one's lived there for 2 years. You suggested selling it. Fortunately, we didn't do that. I'm taking the kids, and I'm moving there, and you can do whatever you want. I'm not going to stay here. That was the limit of my patience. Sam decided to leave with his wife and children. Courtney was furious. She called them ungrateful, scolded them, begged them, and even cried. However, her son and daughter-in-law packed their belongings and left. The house was old and dilapidated, with outdated furniture inside and a backyard overgrown with weeds. Even the toilet and shower were outside. However, it didn't upset them. The main thing was that Courtney wasn't around them. Now they had 2 cars, so it was easy to get to the city. Carol worked from home, so she could devote a lot of time to the children, to their education. Grandmother Courtney continued to pay more attention to David. However, at least now she saw the grandchildren less often. Carol, talk to your daughter. Why did she decide to go to another city? Do we have a bad university here? Her mother-in-law was indignant. Victoria is going to enroll in a faculty that our university doesn't have. It has always been her dream to study there, Carol explained patiently to her mother-in-law. But I expected her to go to a university near my home. I expected her to live with me and help me. After all, I have more frequent migraine attacks, and my heart often aches. I need care, supervision, and communication. Victoria would help me with housework and wouldn't have to look for a normal apartment and pay rent. If my son has no time to take care of me, let my granddaughter do it, the mother-in-law said hopefully. Sam works very hard. He really doesn't have time. I work too. We suggested hiring a nurse for you, but you refuse. Nurse? Do you think I'm sick? I don't want a stranger in my house, but Victoria could move in with me and help me. That would have been fair. No, it wouldn't. Victoria doesn't want to hear anything about living in the same house with you, and I think she has a good reason for that. Courtney, it is only now that you have noticed that you have a granddaughter. You have been ignoring her all these years. Maybe when David is older, he'll be willing to move in with you, and you won't be so lonely. What does David have to do with it? Firstly, he's still very young. Secondly, he's a guy. He doesn't know how to take care of me. And thirdly, he only wants money from me. He only comes for money and gifts. and he's always asking for something, even demanding. You raised your son wrong. He doesn't behave like that at home. It's you who spoiled him. You bought him everything he asked for, and you fulfilled all his wishes, Courtney. If you really can't live alone, then move in with us. I've already suggested it. We're not going to move to your house, and don't even try to ask Victoria about it. You've done everything you could so that your granddaughter doesn't want to see you. Ungrateful, I spent my whole life doing everything for you, the mother-in-law continued to grumble. Carol hung up the phone. She stared out the window for a long time. The children's handmade greeting card popped up in her mind, crumpled and thrown in the trash. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.